What's going on YouTube? This is Zipsec and we'll be doing Aragog from HackTheBox, which probably has one of my top 3 favorite Privesks, but before you can Privesk, you have to get a shell in the box. You do so with a XML entity injection to read a SSH key file that you can use to SSH into the box as a low Priv user. When you're poking around the box, you'll see that there is a hidden Wordpress site in ver.www.html, so you can go there with your web browser to reveal a note left by Cliff that essentially just says he's going to be logging in periodically to see if you wrote anything on WordPress. His password is relatively secure, so you can't just pull it from the database and crack it. Instead, you'll notice that you have write access over all the WordPress config files, so you can just modify the code to also log the user's username and password when they log into a site to a text file, and then just check on that text file in a few minutes. You see Cliff logs in and can steal his password that way, then use it to gain access to the root account because there is some password reuse going on. And that's just my favorite Privesk method, or one of my top favorite ones, because, well, it's so useful in lateral movement, because even if you have root on the web server, being able to dump passwords and get passwords may allow you access to other servers. So it's a Privesk from user to root, but in actual penetration tests, you can do it potentially to get to other servers. So let's jump in. To start things off, we'll run nmap-sc for default scripts, sv, enumerate versions, oa, output all formats, put in the nmap directory, call this Aragog, and the IP address, which is 10.10.10.78. It does take some time, so I've already ran it. Looking at the results, we see 3 ports are open. We got FTP, SSH, and HTTP all on their default ports, and because of the Apache banner, we see it is version 2418 and it's Ubuntu, so this is most likely a Xennial box. You can just Google those two things and find out if you haven't seen from my countless videos before. I don't feel like going and Googling that. FTP, we see anonymous FTP is allowed, and there is a file called test.txt created December 21st, 2017, and then we got SSH. But before I do anything, I'm just going to start a GoBuster in the background because, well, it does take some time to run. You should always have Recon going in the background. So we'll do GoBuster-U for the URL, HTTP 10.10.10.78-W for word list, user share word list, GoBuster, then directory list 2, 3, medium. I'm going to do one extension, PHP. Normally I'll add a bunch like PHP, TXT, etc. But for this, just PHP should be fine. -O is going to be where we save the file to. So we'll say Durbust PHP extension homepage.txt. Just let that go. And then we'll look at the other services. So aragog.nmap. We should look at FTP, and normally I don't do this, but I'll show one odd thing with SSH, at least odd in the sense of HackTheBox. If you try to go to it, you immediately get denied, and it's not based upon user, it's just denied. So this SSH is configured to only allow public key authentication, no passwords. I would say it's odd, but that's how Amazon EC2 instances come by default, so it's not that odd in the grand scheme of things, but for HackTheBox, you should have noticed that someone configured this box to only allow public keys. The FTP, if we do FTP 10.10.10.78, anonymous login. Oh, we even have to put a password. We can just do dir. We can get test.txt. And then this was also VSFTPD 3.0.3. So I'm going to do search exploit, VSFTPD, and we see only exploits for version 2. something. I'm also going to Google VSFTPD changelog. I would do release date, but I normally Google for changelogs, mainly because that somehow gets easier to find publication dates on a changelog. Not sure why. So let's see. I don't know why. Normally people don't put release dates. But let's see this. I don't have any dates here. We could also go to like archive.org and see the first time this page was cached. if that's in their database. Maybe July 2015. We got a thing in Launchpad 303. Then we got Dash. So we got a bunch of minor versions. It's not telling us. So we see 303-9 for Debian at least was published in 2017. Don't see anything on the Wayback Machine, but we're not going to find an exact date of this VSFTPD because they do those dash whatever version. We don't know that. So most likely not going to be related to some type of exploit and VSFTP because it seems to be up to date. So the next thing we can do is cat test.txt, which we had downloaded just before going on that little expedition of trying to find the release date. And test.txt just shows some XML. At this point, I hit a roadblock. We go to GoBuster, and we see that hosts.php has come back with a HTTP 200. So let's check that out. And if we just went to 10.10.10.78, forgot to do this, it's the Apache Ubuntu default page, and things like robots.txt don't exist. But GoBuster did find hosts.php, and we see there are a lot of possible hosts for blank. So what I'm going to do is we're going to send this into Burp. Let's see, is my intercept on? Turn it on. Go to repeater. And then let's change this over to a post request and then just put data at the end of this. So we could say host for, we could send this to wfuzz and try to do it that way. If you search ipsec wfuzz on YouTube, you'll find me using it. But the very first thing I did was took what was in test.txt and pasted it at the bottom of host.php just to see what would happen. Because you'd think they'd be related if that's what the machine creator did. He normally wouldn't put something that's just meaningless. So add this, and we see there are 62 possible hosts for 255.255.255.192. So this looks to be like some type of subnet calculator. So if we change this to .0, we'll probably get 254 possible hosts. There we go. So we have it reading a XML file. So the very first thing I do when that happens is we'll turn intercept off. We can do a Google on payload all the things, GitHub. And this is a awesome repo because I'm not super familiar with XXE attacks, but this repo, when you kind of have something like PHP juggling type, it gives you a bunch of examples with it. So let's look for XXE. Then we can either do files, readme, or intruders. See, we got a example right here, basic test. See, classic, XXE. This should work. Let's try this. So we're going to paste this in. I'm going to fix up that spacing a little bit. I think it was fixed and I just misread it. So we have, actually, I messed something up, so go there. So this is the proof of concept. This is what we have. So what I want to do is take this example, we'll move it up here, and then the XXE is replacing the last name with whatever result it gets. So we'll put this and example here. And I think that's good. What does this say? For dough. Okay, so we do have some type of XXE attack. This isn't doing as much as I thought it would, but it's good, I guess, for explaining. So we have this and example, and in XXE attacks, imagine that and is really just a $sign because it's a variable. So we're doing subnet mask variable and then semicolon to end it. And that variable gets pulled from this entity statement, hence XML entity injection. So we're going to change this to be entity, we'll call this file. And that doesn't matter. It could stay example. Actually, we'll do please subscribe, since it's a meaningless piece of text. Doesn't matter to the payload. To make it extremely obvious, that doesn't matter. Then we're going to say system, and this is going to say, hey, get the file. And we can say a file that always exists, XXE passwd. If we did this correct, which we did not do, it should give us the file. If we put this in quotes, click go. There we go. Just had to be in quotes. And we have this entire file. Not too much information here. I guess what we can get from this is there's a root user, duh, and there's also Florian and Cliff. So I could also try to go to 10.10.10.78/Florian. See if it has like Apache home directories enabled. It doesn't look like it does. What else can we do? We can try to enumerate the source code to that hosts.php so we can see what's happening. So I'm going to guess it's var www html hosts.php. If we click go, nothing comes back. And that's because I think it's processing the HTTP. So if we change this to be a PHP filter, like we did in Crime Stoppers, filter, convert, and we've done in a few other videos, but convert.base64-encode/resource is equal to that. And now we can dump the PHP code. So we can do echo-n base64-d, and we get the code to hosts.php. So this also shows if we could drop a file, then we probably have code execution, because we could just drop a PHP file, or we could also create a DTD file for, I think it's dynamic transform something. It's part of XML, and essentially if you Google like DTD XML entity injection code execution, this leads you to a way of code execution. It has to be in a separate file though, so we need to chain that with a way to create files. Because of that, let's just enumerate more of what we can do or what files are on the system. So the first thing I'm going to do is download a word list. The word list I like for LFIs is actually in a application called LFI Suite on GitHub, and I'm sure there's a way I could use LFI Suite to automatically exploit this XML entity injection. Instead, I'm going to take a easy path and use Burp real quick, and then we'll go and create a Python script. So I'm going to go to this path to test. We get a bunch of files, so I'm going to go to raw, copy this, v file list.txt, paste it, and we're going to grep for something that begins with / on file list to BruteForce. And because I'm going to show a way to do this in Python afterwards, I'm going to use Intruder, which is probably going to be slow if you don't have Burp Pro. So we're just going to send this over to Intruder and go to positions, and all we want to do is clear all these, I guess, weird S's, and whatever is between the S's is what it grabbed from the file. So we're just going to clear that, clear them all, highlight please, not please subscribe, highlight host.php, add something here, and this can be any junk you want. So we can say, thanks for subscribing. Oh, and then this one also has to be that. Oh no, because that's defined there. Never mind. And I'm going to take off this base64 encoding because we don't need it, and it would just make things harder to see. We can go over to the payloads. We can load them. Let's go pwd grab this path, load /bf. It's going to load all the payloads here, and we can start the attack and sort by length and see what worked. So we see we have a VSFTPD conf. If we go to the response, we can see what is here, if there's any like password. XXE passwd file, we know that. Proc self status. Just glancing over the options to see if there was anything like an environment variable that we could just try to put PHP code and see if it executed without a PHP extension. The groups. MySQL config file. Proc self stat. And then we get to a bunch of files we can't see. So, didn't seem like there were any interesting files, but we have to take this kind of to the next step to find something, because if we looked in the home directory, going over to repeater and do XXE passwd, and we'll get rid of the base64. I should have shown this in the Intruder window before I closed it. Click go. We do have two directories we could try to enumerate. So if you went into this directory, we go to like .sh idrsa, you get the key. But how I found that was I created a Python script, and you probably don't have to use Python, but I meant like you don't have to, as there's probably a tool that will help automate this or something, but this is the path I had took. So let's call this file, I guess we'll call it aragog.py. Name doesn't matter. We're going to need one thing right off the bat. We want requests, and I also want base64 decode. So I'm going to do from base64 import b64 decode. And the reason I want that is, since this is going to be scripted out, we can always do a base64 encode and then just decode it and display it. And it just makes it a bit easier to know when the file begins and ends, because there's no space in the request. It's all a predictable character set. So def get file, fname. So we're creating a function to get a file. We got to create the payload. So let us go and grab the one with the base64 encode. And I don't think it is sensitive about lines. So let's put everything on one line. Actually, I don't think we have to. I think if we just do this. Let's try this first. Payload. Then we can set paste. 2, 3, 4. And we can close it after details. That may work. I'm not sure. And we just have to change the file name. So we can do %s. And after this, we can do %s, % and fname. Let's try this real quick. Return payload print. And we'll do just Python too. Python Aragog. Payload is not defined. I'm sure there's a way to do it that way, but we're just going to do it this way. Get everything on one line. Okay. Copy. I'm not going to use double quotes because I noticed the actual payload has double quotes in it. Instead, we'll just do a single quote. And we can end the single quote plus fname plus and single quote. And now, oh crap. It may have worked before. I'm in a function there. Get file. XXE passwd. So you can try that on your own. Maybe it would have worked without that. That was a mistake I had made. And that looks good. except we have a var dub. So we can clear this out. And that all works. So we can go to the next line. We have the payload. We can do the page. This is going to be what we'll call this response. Resp equals request.post, Aragog's IP 10.10.10.78, file name hosts.php, data is equal to payload. There we go. And if we do next content, f content is file content. Doesn't matter, it's just what I'm calling it. And we'll call this response.text. And let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The base 64 is the 6th field. So I'm going to do dot split. Could do regular expression, but this is quicker. Then we just need f content is equal to b64 decode f content. Return f content. And this should print the XXE passwd file. There we go. So let's see. The next thing we do after we get a file, we have to get a list of all the home directories. So def get home directory. Create a blank list so we can append to it later. Passwd is going to be get file XXE passwd. Lines is equal to iter passwd dot split lines, I think. And this is just going to take this response and loop it by line instead of if we just did a for line in passwd or loop by character. For line in lines. Okay, so if we look at a passwd file, see, do I have that here? We want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think the 6 split. So probably 5 because it starts at 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We want that. And we only want the lines that end with sh. We don't want any of this bin false stuff because it's going to create a lot of bogus requests. So we want to do if line ends with sh, then we'll do line is equal to line.split on the colon 5, and this can be we don't want to do home dir. We'll just keep it with line because we did home dir as this variable. Okay, and now we can do home dir dot append line. I think that'll be good. Return home dir. So if we do a print now on get home directories, this should print. Whoa, that's different than I thought it would be. I thought we'd get a list. For I in get home dir print I. There we go. I have to look at exactly what I did. Maybe I did print get home dir instead of print home dir. Okay. So we got a list of all the home directories on this box. So now let's create a file list that we're interested in. We can just edit this. We want to get, let's see, bash history. We'll try like passwords.txt, .history, MySQL history, and .ssh ID RSA for a private key. So if we go in this, Now we just have to do one last thing and loop through all the users and do a get for those files. So for user and get homedir. We'll call this fh is equal to open, what did I call it? File list.txt. Then for line in fh, please subscribe because this doesn't really matter. Get file user plus line. Okay, if please subscribe. So if the file returned anything instead of just nothing, then we will print the contents. So print user plus line, print get please subscribe. So when we execute this, we got nothing. That's odd. For line in something, print line. We got a, so it's doing a blank line in between, so we probably have and a line character at the end of each line. So if we do, let's see, line dot, no, where is it? Yeah, here. Dot strip, strip. There we go. So now we have two results. We have, let's see, homeflorian.bash history. We have a few files, and we have a SSH key. So that is how I found the SSH key, and generally what I do when I have an LFI and I can't figure out how to chain it to a code execution, I start poking around for potentially sensitive files. So we can call this florian.ssh, I guess. Name doesn't matter. CHMOD'd that to 600, and ssh-i. Florian is the user at 1010. Nope. ssh-i, specify the key, specify the user, and then the IP, and we get into Aragog. So going over that script real quick, let's do vim aragog.py. So quick recap of this. We have a function to get a file. We have a function to get the passwd file, but only grab the home directories out of it. Then we're looping through every home directory we found, and then essentially just looking for sensitive files in that and printing it out. So that's all that script did. But let's go to SSH. And let's see, what can we do? I guess we can do LinEnum. So cd op script op Linux privesc. Not Linux exploiter. There we go. Python m simple HTTP server. And we just curl 10.10.14.30/linenum.sh. Pipe it over to bash. And curl is not installed. So way to get wget to only show text, but I forget that flag. So I'm just going to do 10.10.14.30 linenum.sh. Execute it. And then we can see what this shows. So we have some kernel information. It is compiled Tuesday, January 9th. And if you recall, I believe, let's see, this box was released in December. So, well, the creator was creating this box in December and was released around this time. So there's probably a kernel exploit for this, and you shouldn't do it because you'd be cheating yourself of the correct solution. Kernel exploits is something I only do as a very last resort. Even if I'm on a pen test and I see a kernel exploit would work, I still look for other routes because kernel exploits can crash the box or just do unexpected things. So it's generally the last thing I'll try to play with. So we'll keep enumerating to see what else we see. User, passwd file. Let's see. Go back to the passwd. Jesus, so many files displayed. Where were we? Okay, so let's see. That's the passwd, samples, root account, home directory permissions. We see that Florian directory is readable by everyone, so this is kind of where why Apache server could go into this directory. Files owned by user but writable by group. We see a bunch of crap is chmodded to 777, so anyone can do anything. And there's a new directory, ver www html dev wiki. So if we go to dev wiki, we can see a WordPress page. Do about, go to blog, and we see, hi Florian, thought we could use a wiki, feel free to log in and poke around. I'll be logging in, this is the big hint on the box, is a message from Cliff that says, I'll be logging in regularly, well, I can't even say that word, and will email the wider team when I need more testers. So he's logging in frequently to this box, and we could do WP scan, look for XXS, and try to steal his cookie. But why would we even bother doing that? Because all stealing cookie would do is give us admin to the WordPress, and we could already get that because if we go to ver www html, we can go to dev wiki and there's ZZ backup, which is another thing. But wp config, and we should be able to get the password out of this. Let's just head it. Head -20 wp config. Head -50. Let's see. There we go. So we got one password right here. And we can try to su to Cliff with it. Doesn't exist. Su to root with it. Can't do it. MySQL. -u root, I think. -p. Put the password in. Show databases. And we could do something like, let's send sys. Table sys. Use sys. Show tables. Let's see. Select star from. I think this table is where you can dump MySQL physical users from. Yeah, I think we got root, Debian, sysmate, and background. So nothing there. Show databases. We got a MySQL table. Show tables. Oh, MySQL tables where users are stored and passwords. Select star from users. User. There we go. So let's just do select user and where's the password? Host, user. One of them is going to be a password. And a lot of them are not valid. So that Debian maintenance user, this is not a valid password that can be used here, is how MySQL puts bad passwords. But we only see a few users here. So let's go over to the WordPress database. Show databases. Use WP Wiki. Show tables. So let's do describe WP users. Select user login user pass from WP users. And we could try to crack the administrator password for WordPress, but there doesn't really appear to be anything valuable in WordPress. Select star from WP posts. Select star. I said from, but I did not type from. describe WP post, select post title from WP post. And we can just see some pages. Doesn't seem to be anything of interest in this MySQL database. But if I do an ls, I notice devwiki just disappeared. And it did that because there's a cron that is copying ZZ backup to devwiki. And if we go to devwiki, we can kind of back that up because it's not preserving the file time. We see it's 9:32 on the box, and these files were created at 9:30. So instead of trying to crack the password, we can write to these files. So let us just go to devwiki. Let's go to where we would log into WordPress, so wp-admin. Oh, I forgot to clean one thing up in my box. If you wanted to go to devwiki, whoops, my bad. Let's fix this. Vim etc hosts. It's typical WordPress. 10.10.10.78. You'd probably get something that looks like this. And that's just because WordPress puts the host name in all the requests, and I had something in my host file. So 10.10.10.78 Aragog, aragog.htb, in case it calls it either or. And if you looked at the page source, you would see it's not linking the IP or a relative path. It's absolute path with host name. So if you're following along and WordPress didn't show up, that is why. Now let's go to devwiki/wp-admin and see how a login actually works. So this doesn't have to be anything, so we'll do ipsec rocks or something. Turn proxy intercept on, and let us log in. So we're submitting a request to wp-login.php. Our username is log, and a password is in the pwd field. So what I'm going to do is let's go to Aragog, and because it's going to disappear on me, I'm just going to copy wp login to Vim will just write over it, I think. We'll see what happens. vi wp login.php, and we just want to find where the login happens or something happens, and we can just write the password. So I'm going to guess the syntax is going to be post log, and that should get usernames. Search for log. I probably didn't escape something. There we go. So default, we got the cases login, and let's see. If empty is not log, sanitize user, get user by login. Let's see. This may be good. So let's just, under login, we'll just put PHP code file, put contents. Let's put it in dot. Please subscribe. Then we want to create, let's see, post log, and then append post. What is the password? PWD, I think, is password for WordPress. PWD, yep. And the file just changed. It's been, I guess, that 5-minute mark that it overwrites. And then we want to do \n for a new line. I think that's good. And file append. If I did the PHP code right, that's going to write the file .please subscribe to the current working directory, and it's going to put the parameter that's in post log, the parameter that's in post pwd into that file. Forced to write? Oh, I can't write. That's what I was afraid of. Open this again. Go out of the directory. Go into the directory. Open it. Was it case? Case something. Just search for it. Log. Okay. Put that there. If we forward a WordPress request, we should see .please subscribe. Let's see, did we? We don't. So I may have an error in my PHP. Let's see. Proxy, HTTP history, repeater, internal server error. So yeah, I screwed something up. Let's see. File put. Let's see. What? I don't have a semicolon. Was that it? That's not it. Let's see. I forgot a dot as well. And the dot is pretty much just how we use plus in that Python script. Can't open it for writing. This is annoying. Copy that line. And it's default. So search for default. Paste. And that syntax should all be good. WordPress, paste. We no longer get that 500 error, ls-la. We got ipsec rocks and please subscribe, so everything appears to be working. And let's just tail-f please subscribe to see if that user ever does log in, because every call to WP login should be hooked. And just waiting. Is he going to? Yeah, he did. I noticed that as I was switching my tab, but we have administrator and then the password. So we could log into WordPress with that. We go disable proxy, WP login, administrator. And we get in. Additionally, we can see there's really nothing here. But if we do a SU on Cliff, that password doesn't work. SU with root, paste that password, and now we get root.txt. Oh, we SU to root, and we can cat root.txt and see it is 33 characters, which is an MD5 sum, then the new line break. So that is the box. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you next week.